Hey, get your fetish porn out of my horror movie.
No, you get your horror movie out of my fetish porn. We watched Blood Gnome. We watched it so you don't have to. So you know what time it is. Welcome, Moongoons, to another wonderful episode of the Horrible Horror Podcast, the podcast where we watch the worst of the worst in horror movies, movies so bad they're scary. I'm your host, Mr. Marshall Hampton. Joining me remotely again today is my co-host, my buddy, Mr. Aaron Southworth. How are you doing on this fine Sunday afternoon, Aaron?
Coming to you from my wife's closet. All right. Yeah, I do these recordings in my wife's closet because she's got a whole bunch of clothes set up in here, and it dampens the noise. There's no reverberation. It's the best sound quality I can get. But we just ordered a whole bunch of IKEA closet space things. We have a whole extra room with nothing in it. We have 4-bedroom house, but we don't have one. But we're going to make it a closet, and I'm going to get her small closet to make my own little studio. So I'm excited about that.
All right. So, yeah, they don't have a whole lot to go into this week. So this movie, Blood Gnome, was suggested to us by Brandon Schneider. So thanks to Brandon for this movie. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. This is one that we had to buy too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I had to buy this one because you can only find it right now on disc from Amazon. So I had to buy not one but 2 copies of this film, I guess you want to call it.
Movie. Yes, I mean it's technically a film.
It is
and maybe that's telling you something that it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah, it was released straight to video on March 27th of 2004. It's written and directed by John Lachago, I think is how you pronounce the name. He's got 9 credits as director. This was his first released movie that he did, and then he would go later on. He'd go on to direct Killjoy 3, 4, and 5 for Full Moon.
Sweet.
And that's really all he's going to be known for right now. The cast, there's not a whole lot of people worth talking about in this one. Our lead character, Daniel, is played by Vinny Balancio. He's got 36 credits, including Killjoy Goes to Hell, where he played the tramp clown. Werewolf in a Women's Prison, which sounds awesome. And Sorority House Massacre. Then we have a cameo. The BDSM goddess is played by Julie Strain, who we just saw last week. She's back again.
Back-to-back episodes. Yeah,
so we might have a future Hall of Famer creeping up on us here. And then,
dear Lord.
Then cop number 1 is played by Al Burke, who's got over 200 credits to his name, but I doubt anyone knows who the fuck he is because they're all small and bit parts. However, he goes by the nickname Mr. Outrageous, and he briefly wrestled for the WWF back in the day before it became WWE. And this at the time that this movie was released back in 2004, he was still wrestling on the indie circuit. So there's
Mr.
that. Mr. Outrageous. I don't know if that's his wrestling name.
That's a fantastic name. It's like there's Mike Awesome and Just Incredible.
Yeah.
But this guy is just saying, fuck the first name part. I'm just Mr. Oh, I already forgot it. What was it?
Outrageous.
Outrageous. I don't know why I just fucked that up. Great. It's one of those days, man. It's one of those days. Just hard sleeping last night. But
yeah, me too.
I'm here, baby. I'm here.
I had a terrible night sleeping last night. So anyway,
yeah, we're both pretty low energy.
Yeah, we are. I'm gonna try to pick it up here. I'm working on it. So we're just gonna jump.
I'm not.
We're going to the movie now, and we open with this bleach blonde-haired drug dealer in a smoke-filled room. And, of course, this bleach blonde hair was like the in style in the late 90s or 2000s. I guess it was like all thanks to Eminem. Everybody, this bleach blonde look. And he's in this smoke-filled room calling out for somebody named Alondra, who for some reason he can't see even though she's clearly standing right in front of him against the wall, just standing there.
I did like that part. I did the where are you? And it's like they didn't even put effort to put like a shadow in front of her.
No,
she's just a little further back.
Yep, just plainly visible. He basically says, "I'm here for his, I'm here for my pickup." Alana tells him that she'll go get his stuff, but don't touch anything while I'm gone. So of course, that's immediately what he starts doing. He starts touching things, and he's looking about
monkeying around with crap. Yeah.
And he looks like he's about to shoot himself up with some drugs or something. When he starts to hear a noise come from behind him, he turns around and sees this large wooden crate that has air holes in the side of it, and it's emitting light and smoke from it. So there's smoke and like light coming out of these air holes. He kneels down to get a closer look at it, and that's when several long tentacles come shooting out of the top of the crate, wrap around his neck. They start pulling him into the crate, and we see this giant, gaping, fang-filled mouth trying to eat him. And Ilana runs up, saves him by telling the creature to let go of him. The creature listens to her, releases the dude from its grip, and retreats back into the crate. The dude's just like, "What the hell was that?" But Ilana's like, just says, "You know what?" Ignores him, says, "You got the drugs, you sell the drugs, and remember, don't sell to the BDSM community," and then sends him on his way. So no explanation.
This kind of looks like an Audrey 2-esque kind of thing, from Little Shop of Horrors, the face. You kind of always see close-ups of it, so you don't get a good full look at it.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? I'm actually a little intrigued.
Right. I am too at this point. So she looks back in the crate, opens the lid, pets the tentacles for a bit, and then says, "He's too rich for you. Like you won't like him. He's too rich for your diet." She looks back over her shoulder and says, "It's time to feed Mother. Go." And then we see these two ghostly white blurs move across the screen, accompanied by some growling and gnarling sounds. Very much like that. We roll the opening credits, which are played over a black and white montage of a BDSM session. It includes a guy tied up in ropes with his hands bound above his head, hanging from the ceiling, while a woman in black vinyl corset is dominating him and doing all this stuff. And as this goes on, she strips down naked. Turns out, fun fact, the guy in this scene is actually the director who had to stand in for the guy who was supposed to do the scene but never showed up. So once the credits are over, we hear this feral roaring. The movie goes back to color at this point as the dude starts getting cut and sliced up by these invisible creatures, some kind of invisible force. He's just it's kind of
like shitty Predator camouflage. It's not quite Predator. It's a little it's more white hue to it.
Yes.
But to be perfectly honest, for an indie small time budget movie, it's not that bad.
No, it's not. The cuts look really good for because they're invisible. You can't see what's coming, but he's just getting these almost stigmata-esque slashes, just rip it,
all of a sudden the skin's ripping open and the chick's freaking out and she's screaming. He runs over. She actually is trying to help him out, trying to get him off, which good on her. Good on her. Don't let a client down. But she also gets slashed up and slashed to pieces, and they end by killing the guy, cutting his arms off, his arms still dangling from the
I kind of love it, man. And they both fall to the floor dead. And like you said, I'm going to echo your sentiment. For a micro-budget film, it really doesn't look that bad. I'm surprisingly impressed so far. I'm like, oh, all right, we've seen a whole hell of a lot worse. This isn't too bad so far.
And just kind of a quick, we should probably talk about this now because this movie is lousy with sexual teasing, S&M kind of activity, lots of rope play, and that's your thing, man. You're in for a treat.
Yeah, it's total. It's a BDSM community fetish film horror movie. It's filled with that stuff. Lots and lots of that. We cut to our main character Daniel now, who is a crime scene photographer, taking pictures of the murder scene that we just saw. And he notices this tiny handprint on the floor. He takes a picture of it before it gets all smeared by some CSI guys moving the body. Up comes his CSI lady boss asking him how he's doing and how he's holding up. And we learn that Daniel had just come back to work after taking a leave of absence for a bit. But then she just gives him the business for being late. So her like, hey, how you doing? Is very short lived, and she just starts reaming him for being late.
This chick just reminds me of like the classic angry police cams, like, come on, you think you're running this town? You're just gonna get in trouble now. Just yelling and screaming. Like smoke should be shooting out of her ears.
Yeah.
She just like has two emotions. It's either quiet or angry and yelling.
Yeah, 100%. And it doesn't make sense that like she's yelling for being late because he was asleep in bed. Like he's on call. Like she called him. He answers the phone. He's like, okay, I'll be right there. And he goes straight there. And she yells at him for being like, it doesn't make any sense for him to yells at him for being late when he's not like scheduled to be there.
She sucks. She's such a shit character.
She is. So now we meet Ted, who I think is like Daniel's assistant or his underling or like something, I don't know, who's taking video of the scene while Daniel shoots photography. And Ted and the CSI lady boss and the lead detective are standing around talking, and we see like the severed arm is still hanging from the ceiling behind him. And again, I'm impressed by how good the severed arm looks because we've seen some really terrible looking fake body parts in a lot of these movies. And I was totally expecting to see the same thing in this one, but this one looks pretty good and pretty realistic for a severed arm hanging from the ceiling.
Not that bad.
Next, we see one of the bodies being removed from the house as a local TV reporter is filming an on-the-spot news report as a handful of bystanders / onlookers gather around the crime scene. Two of those onlookers turn out to be Alondra, who we saw already, she's there, and our other main character, who we're about to get introduced to. So Alondra and our new girl are eavesdropping on Daniel and Ted as they talk off to the side. Ted tells Daniel that he was having some issues with some of the camcorder video modes, and Daniel tells Ted that he had it on night shot IR mode, to which Ted says, "What's that?" And I'm like, really? How does a guy get hired as a photographer not knowing what a fucking night vision mode is on a camera? Like, that just blew my mind that he would even include that. That's just dumb. But Ted leaves, and our new girl flags down Daniel to try to get information out of him about the murders because the victims turn out to be friends of hers. So he tells her it looks like someone tied them up and tortured them to death. And she tells him, no, that's not right. They were just into BDSM and they were just playing. She gives him his business card and asks him to call her with any information. And on the card, we see that her name is Divinity and that she works in the BDSM world as a dom or a sub. That's a dominant or a submissive for those of you not in the know. She also tells Dan to call her if he needs any help with the BDSM stuff. It's like, I'll tell you about it or help you understand it or something like that. So Divinity leaves.
Okay, real quick. I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. S&M, I know it's sadomasochism.
Yeah.
What's the BD?
I believe it's bondage and dominance.
See, these
bondage,
kids
domination.
today,
I think it's bondage and domination, sadomasochism.
Just coming up with all kinds of new fun things to add to it. You're not happy with sadomasochism. You have to add a little bit more. It's like
it's kind of like it's like the rainbow community, man. Like it's like the.
I was about to say. Remember when it was LGBT?
Yeah,
and now it's LGBT.
Now it's like the entire fucking alphabet. I don't know. I can't keep track of it anymore. I
know. I can't keep up with sex trends. I can't keep up with sexual identification trends. Man, it's a lot to take in.
It's insane. I think we need to pull back the reins on some of this stuff a little bit. Anyway, so Devine leaves. Ted comes running back to show Dan some video footage he just took. Dan watches the footage, which we see on the screen is just a close-up shot of some girl's tits in a bra. So apparently this camcorder not only has night vision, but it's IR vision, but it has X-ray vision as well. It's seen through a girl's clothing, which is insanity. While Daniel is watching the footage, the CSI girl whose tits are on the screen comes up behind him, catches him watching the video, calls him a pervert, and punches him and then storms away, causing him to drop the camera, and it breaks a bit.
Why isn't she one of these BDSM kind of characters? She's hot.
Yeah, she was not bad looking. So Daniel bends down to pick up the camera, and he sees on the screen a small demon-looking monster hunched over in the corner, like by the stairs that lead into the house. But when he looks up, he can't see it with his own eyes until he looks back through the camera again and can see it. But then the creature just seems to leap straight up into the air like fucking Superman and disappears out of sight. It's gone. So we got back to Daniel in bed sleeping this time. He's back in bed sleeping, and he's dreaming about memories of his ex-wife, who is way too hot for him. He really outkicked his coverage on this one.
Man, see, I gotta say, lucky guy, you know?
Yeah.
Punching above his weight.
She tells him how great a photographer he is, and he should be working for Cosmo or Vogue and not doing these crime scene bullshit. He pulls out an envelope with a picture in it that he wants to show her. She opens it up, looks at it, and instantly gets all excited. She rips off her top, pounces on him while saying yes. So I'm guessing he just gave her like an 8x10 dick pic. That's my guess. And we crossfade to them sleeping after having sex. Dan wakes up from a phone ringing again. He gets called to another crime scene. So while Daniel is filming the crime scene again, he sees these small monster things through his camera on the screen. This time the monster is like licking up the blood coming out of the murdered chick, while a CSI tech is just inches away, like doing, I don't know, working or doing something. But yet he can't hear the monster.
No one can see him. No one can hear him. These things are completely void of human identification, except for Daniel, who's looking at him through this camera.
Yeah. Now, I'm not opposed to, they can only be seen through like a spectrum or some kind of, that's fine. My problem is, like, if they're invisible, that doesn't mean they're completely silent. Like, they might be mute, let's say, but if you're going to hear somebody going, like, just inches away from you, lapping up blood, or you're going to see the blood being moved around by some invisible force. That's the stuff that bothers me.
Do these invisible critters have math? Because if you're walking around, wouldn't you? There's tons of people in this room.
Yes.
Wouldn't someone like bump into one?
Yeah.
Accidentally kick one.
Exactly. That's another thing, because they run around everybody. Sometimes they even run on top of people, and people, like, no one knows or take notices. So there's some real inconsistencies and some messed up stuff about the physics and math of these things.
The laws around these critters are pretty loosey-goosey.
Very loosey-goosey. So the monster looks up and kind of senses that Daniel can see him, and it scurries off. Daniel starts moving the camera all around and starts seeing more and more of these tiny monsters who all dash off and hide. So there's more than one. There's several of them there. He gets startled by a CSI boss lady who asks him if he's all right, but again, just gives him the business for acting odd and asking dumb questions. Like, he's just asking questions like, did you see this?
Why are you asking dumb questions? That doesn't make any sense. I respect you coming back as soon as you did. I'm really happy you're here. Like, that's exactly what she does.
That is exactly what she does. It makes zero sense. It's bonkers, man. She flips that switch so fast.
So what do you call a group of blood gnomes? A gaggle?
A murder?
A murder?
A murder? A pack? A herd?
A kraken? Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows?
We're gonna have to figure that out. I'll give it some thought.
All right, that's a good idea. So now we cut back to the drug dealer. We saw entering a room that looks like it's someone's crappy storage room with a water heater in it. He sits down in his chair, closes his eyes, and I guess passes out instantly. And almost instantly then, as soon as he closes his eye, Alondra pops up in front of him, gets right up in his face, wakes him up. She pulls him up out of his chair, saying that he doesn't look like or dress like a typical drug dealer. And to that I say she is wrong, because he totally looks like a drug dealer from the late 90s. Like,
right out of typecasting. It's right out of
typecasting. He screams drug dealer. She goes on to say maybe that's because you're not on typical junk. She then reaches into his pants and pulls out a handful of tiny broken plastic capsules, to which he says a lot of X times 10 empties here, and calls him his own best customer. So the made up drug in this movie is called X times 10. So I'm guessing it's supposed to be something so strong. It's like ecstasy times 10. I mean, I guess that's what you're gonna assume.
So wait, hold on. I think I'm onto something here. X times 10. X, the letter X, times, which is an X symbol, and the letter 10 in Roman numerals is an X.
Oh my God, it's triple X. Ah! I wish I had picked on that. Triple X for basically a fetish porn movie too. That's
maybe sleepy, but I'm not slow.
That's perfect. I wish I would have come up with that. That's amazing. You're totally okay. So triple X.
Triple X, yeah, and it's I think a bushel. I think it's a good sum for blood gnomes. A bushel of blood gnomes. Why not?
So Alondra goes on saying that you don't have my drugs, you don't have my money. What do you have? At this point, she decides the best way to punish him is to sex him up. She starts rubbing her hands up and down his chest, rips his shirt open, forces him back down into the chair. Alondra strips out of her power suit blazer, but then she just...
Why can't I have a boss like that?
Yeah, exactly. But you might not want her after this because she pulls out a knife, and after teasing him with it, just slits his throat. Which, again, isn't the worst throat slice we've seen. It's not the greatest, but it's pretty simple, but it's certainly not the worst we've seen.
It's solid. It's good fundamentals.
Right, and they did themselves a favor by not doing a close-up of it. Some people they do a close-up of it, and you see all the prosthetics and all the makeup and everything attached to it, but they don't do that, so it looks fine. She stands up and says, "He's all yours. Take him back to Mother." And then we see some more of those blurry white ghostly images scurrying around the screen, coming by
a bushel of blood gnomes.
Yeah, bushel of blood gnomes. We cut back to Daniel on the old Google machine looking up BDSM. He enters a BDSM chat room called Whips and Chains and starts asking questions, which he just gets laughed and ridiculed at for, being an idiot about it. It's like, what are you doing in here? Get the fuck out of here.
Nerd.
You don't belong here. So he gets off and he calls Divinity and sets up a date with her, a date to meet up with her. You jump back to Alondra in her drug warehouse where she's standing over the crate with her hands inside of it. And we see inside is a giant fanged, lined Sarlacc pit looking monster pussy that is giving birth to a new baby, quote unquote, blood gnome. It's insanity. It's ridiculous. But it's fucking awesome at the same time. I'm like, holy shit, this is what's happening.
I'm so glad you said that sentence. That brought such a smile to my face. A Sarlacc, like a wonderful. Mwah, chef's kiss. Come on.
So she then takes a syringe and extracts some goo from the monster vag, then mixes the goo with flour, I think, and makes her X times 10 her triple X drugs.
You gotta thicken it up. You gotta thicken that sauce up a little bit.
Yeah.
You throw a little flour. You make a tasty roux.
You want to make sure it rises nicely in the oven or something. We go back to Daniel, who's getting ready for his day with Divinity. She shows up at his house. He lets her in. They talk a little bit about the murder case, and she mentions that she read an article about him that said he was admitted to a mental hospital a few months ago. During this, he goes into the kitchen, heats up some old coffee in a microwave. And then when he re-enters the room, you can see, if you look really carefully, it's real brief, but when he re-enters the room, you can see some random dude just sitting in a chair in the background. And like, who's that guy? Why is he there? But there's just some random dude sitting there.
I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, if you blink, you'll miss it. But apparently, what happened, I guess it was like one of the producers was on set that day, and he just sitting there, and they didn't realize he was in the shot when they were filming, and they just left it in. So you just have this random dude just sitting in the background. So they end up talking about all these photos on the wall. Also, I want to mention, I think I have, you know what, fuck it. I think I have something about it. I'll come back to it. They talk about all these photos he has on the wall, and this is where shit gets real fucking creepy. Because all the pictures on his wall are of murder victims from crime scenes. And that's not even the really dark and fucked up or creepiest thing. Oh no, that comes when he shows Divinity one very special picture. That being of a pretty blonde woman who was killed by a bullet through her eye. And turns out that pretty blonde woman was his fucking wife. That's right. This fucker keeps a picture of his murdered wife on the wall, which sure, some people have pictures of deceased loved ones on the walls, but not pictures of them getting from the murder scene. Not of them fucking half their face blown off, but he keeps that shit on the wall. That shit should be
like,
setting
I know,
up. I'm sorry, but it should be setting up giant red flags.
The BDS community is into some weird stuff and some weird people. They're very accepting, but that should be fucking red flags. Yes. Flashing. This guy's crazy.
The alarm should be going off in her fucking head saying, get the hell out of this guy's house, especially since she just said, oh, by the way, you just got out of a mental hospital for God knows what, and now you have pictures of your dead, murdered wife on your wall? Are you fucking kidding me? He tells her a story that his wife is like his wife and her new boyfriend were both killed in a murder-suicide, that he killed her and then killed himself. And I'm like, bullshit. This fucker's like Dexter, and those photos are his blood slides. That's what this shit is. But Divinity...
Yes, very good.
But Divinity just lets that shit wash off her like water on a duck's back. She doesn't care. I'm like, are you... I am blown away at this point. I'm like, get out! Get out of the house! The phone... the call's coming from inside the house. Just get out! But... on a side note, when I talk about he goes into the kitchen, he heats up his used old coffee. He has 2 microwaves sitting on top of each other, stacked up, which is another just really weird thing. Like, who does that? Who has 2 microwaves stacked on top of each other? Just another really odd thing.
Dude, you want to make a hot pocket? You want to make a hot pocket, and you want to warm up some coffee? I mean, you gotta do one at the same time. What you're gonna do one and the other? You have 2 of them.
So anyway, Daniel and Divinity work out a deal where she will teach him about BDSM and he will keep her informed of new information on her friend's murder case. She then invites him to come over for one of her BDSM sessions that she actually has set up for later tonight. But I will say at this point, I do want to say I was very pleasantly surprised by the quality of Divinity's acting, though. Again, I thought the acting was going to be complete dog shit. And for the most part, it's not great. It's pretty poor all around, but Divinity didn't bother me. I thought she was okay. She had some real nice moments. I felt, I don't want to say a chemistry or connected to her, but she seemed real and genuine.
I mean, I guess, but she didn't knock it out of the park.
No, I'm not saying it was okay. It's Emmy worthy, but I'm just saying it was better than I was expecting for this movie. She was probably the best in this movie.
Fair enough.
So we cut to Daniel arriving at the BDSM session. Divinity lets him in and introduces her to her mistress, which turns out to be Alondra. So we have a BDSM drug lord who has killer monster pets as basically our villain in this movie. That's a crazy combination.
She reminds me so much. Dude, I looked her up. I couldn't find any other work that this actress has done, but she looks so much like the assistant scientist's wife from the original Killer Eye movie, who does a lot of tentacle. Her titties are all out. She's the one I said had cankles.
Oh,
not Halloween Haunt, but the Killer Eye, the first
original
one.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but the girl who played Alondra is Ree Walton. I think is her last name. She really doesn't do. She's just a really only acting job. She was more of a stunt woman. A lot of stunt work, especially in Japan and stuff, which explains why she's fucking jacked. She's pretty fucking muscular compared to everybody else in this movie.
She's in good shape. Yeah, but honestly, I really thought that was her, but it's not. I was excited for a second. I was like, ooh, back to back, or not back to back, but a reappearance. I should say.
Yeah, I don't think it's her.
But no, alas, it's not.
So Daniel starts filming as Divinity and Alondra begin their session, and Divinity gets stripped down to her underwear, tied up. Daniel scans the room with his camera looking for blood gnomes. Alondra beckons Daniel to come over and has him sit in a chair that's kind of in front of Divinity. She bends Divinity over him, facing him with her hands on his shoulders, and basically has Divinity brace herself on Daniel while she gets whipped across the back with Alondra's cat of 9 tails. So there's that happening. So now we go to the CSI lab where CSI boss lady talks to lead detective about some saliva that was found at the crime scene, but the saliva is not from a human. They go on talking about some more oddities that are all involved in this case. I'm skipping ahead to when Daniel enters to talk to him about the picture of the tiny handprint. But all he does is get yelled at when they find out that the picture got ruined somehow, and he didn't put a ruler in the picture. And
oh God, I can't believe it! What are you talking about? Why are you going to come back so fast?
But the funny thing is, like, they say the picture's ruined, but then she hands him the picture, which is clearly not ruined. Like, what? How can you say, like, don't say it's ruined and then give him the picture? It's perfectly fine. The scene drags on some more, and the funny thing, you can't see the reflection of the boom mic in the glass door behind Daniel if you're looking, so you can see the video. You can see that.
I'm glad you're picking these things up because I didn't notice this stuff.
Well, I watched this movie 3 fucking times, so you started.
Ouch.
Yeah, so you start seeing stuff after a while.
You start seeing a lot of things, huh?
Yeah, we cut to Divinity in her garage doing some carpentry because she's a woman of many talents apparently. In comes Daniel, and she tells him that on the side she makes BDSM furniture, and shows him this chair that she's working on that has this like cross back piece, and that's the backrest is like just a cross, like one beam, and it's meant for you tie someone's arms up to the cross beam of it, but at the same time it's made to break away if you're in trouble. So it had the arms, the cross beam arms will break off if you do it right for safety.
I like that she classifies it as BDSM furniture. Like, there's IKEA style furniture, Amish style furniture, and right down the road, quaint little spot, the BDSM furniture store.
Yes, 100%. So Divinity mentions that she's making a chair for her mistress, who is organizing a big play party. Daniel wants to know about blood sports because he wants to sign up for the secretive Kumite so he can avenge his Sadoshi's murder. So she tells him she has to travel to Hong Kong to find the underground fighting arena, but first has to break the bottom brick of a stack of bricks using the Doom Mock technique. So that's happening. No, I'm sorry. I just... Jackson! Brick not hit back. But seriously, she tells him that blood sports are a very rare thing and only a small percentage of the BDSM people or community partake in it. She then tells him that he needs another session to understand it all. It's like, you're just too dumb. I need to whip you some more, then you'll understand. Let me beat the knowledge into you or something. I don't know. I guess that's what's going on.
Man, that'd be a weird turn for the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme if they're all wearing like leather bondage gears and have like rubber balls in their mouth and
a whole different type of Bloodsport. Jean-Claude Van Damme and Bolo Yang are whipping each other with mouth gags and cutting each other instead of fighting. Yeah,
the first person to say the safe word loses.
That's not powder he throws in Van Damme's eyes. That's X10 or that's Triple X he's throwing in the eyes of Van Damme.
X times 10.
So basically, she tells him that this time it will just be the two of them and come to her house later tonight. So we're skipping ahead to later that night. Divinity binds Daniel's hands together and then pulls out a knife and cuts off his shirt, which I'm like, I'd be kind of pissed at that. Like, come on, you just let me take my shirt off. Don't rip it. Now it's ruined. You just ruined my shirt. So you're
just not in the moment, Marshall.
I guess not. I'm just like, come on. So
my shirt costs $30.
Yeah. She blindfolds him and then starts like gently flogging him. And then she uses like ice cubes to tease his nips and all this stuff. She too ends up naked during this montage, and then they end up making out. And
I just fast forwarded through this part.
Yeah, and they I'm assuming they end up fucking it, but you don't see it.
It goes on for a hot minute, and I was just like, okay. And then I thought to myself, am I just not into sex? And it's not that I'm just not into sex. I'm just not into sex, I guess, as much as I am other things like time. Like I have time. I need some time back in my life. That's as interesting to me as sex. So right now, time's winning. Fast forward.
It kind of happens when you have a newborn baby at home and all you want is time because you don't have it anymore.
She was napping at this moment, so I'm just like, okay, I gotta fast forward to this shit.
I don't know, man. I thought some of was get kind of hot in this movie, man. Like, oh, all right, let's go.
But anyway. I hear you, and I can understand that, but the thing that was sexy to me was getting to the movie.
But it cuts away to another really, really fucking weird BDSM session. This one is a little too weird for me. Between some people we haven't seen yet. We see like this large object on like a butcher's table, like a big table, covered in brown paper, like you would wrap up meat in. And a woman wearing only a red apron and yellow dishwashing gloves enters. This is all happening while Divinity explains more about blood sports to Daniel in voiceover. The woman peels back the brown paper to reveal a man with spiked hair wearing a pig nose and holding an apple in his mouth like a ball gag with his hands bound behind his back. She starts gently tenderizing his back with a meat tenderizing mallet. Then eventually she cuts his hands free. He takes off her apron. They end up making out on the butcher's table. But before they bang each other, they use like a black Sharpie and start outlining sections of their body like you do on a cow, like the different cuts of meat, kind of thing.
This is the strip steak. This is the rump roast. This is the hock. Yeah.
And so they're doing that in a Sharpie on each other, and they're basically using this as a guideline for where they're gonna cut each other with like these scalpels and stuff. Sadly, we never actually get to see them fuck because several of the blood gnomes show up and just start slicing them open and cutting them open all again. Just, again, invisible slices and cuts appearing on them. They're screaming. Blood's going everywhere. Again, it looks fine.
Is that a bushel of blood gnomes?
A bushel of blood gnomes? Sure. And they die. So they're dead now.
Well, that term is not sticking, is it? That bushel of blood gnomes term is just not sticking with you.
I guess it's not. I don't know. I'm not big on the bushel.
I keep like trying to make it work, and it's not.
Yeah, to me, I think bushel. I'm thinking of like vegetables or fruit or something, like a bushel of grapes or something. Not bloodthirsty, weird, invisible monsters.
Well, it's a bunch of grapes.
Yeah, but
it's a bushel of apples.
Okay, fine, a bushel of apples. Still not. Anyway, so now we jump back to Daniel, who has loaded his camera with special IR film. Talking to himself about how he's going to get those little bastards. His phone rings. He gets called to another crime scene, which I'm guessing is the one we just saw, the pig thing. And on the drive there, he's still talking to himself about the monsters. In the back seat, now we see one of the invisible monsters pop open the film hatch on the back of Daniel's camera, exposing the film and ruining it. He arrives at the crime scene. He gives his camera to Ted so he can focus on shooting video while trying to capture images of the blood gnomes, which, by the way, at this point in this movie, we are calling them blood gnomes, but up until now, they've never been called blood gnomes. And at this point, I'm like, why the fuck are they called blood gnomes? They don't look like gnomes. They're never going to be referred to as blood gnomes. They're not called gnomes. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't know why they use blood gnome, because they don't look like gnomes at all.
They're way more like ghoulies.
They do look more like ghoulies. Like, they look like tiny, weird ghoulies. Yeah, definitely more ghoul and demon than gnome. Daniel goes into this odd picture-taking frenzy while everyone else in the room just kind of stands there looking at him like he's just lost his mind. He's like, I got you now. He's taking all these weird pictures and videos. He's just going nuts in the middle of this crime scene. And now we cut to lead detective staking out some building, and he decides to head inside. Now, this is weird because when we see the building, it's like this big commercial office building. And then we see the lead detective staking out his car. He gets out of his car, goes up to the building, and in that millisecond shot change, it goes from like a 5-story commercial building to a small 1-story residential home. So it's like, really? You can't get your building straight in this either? Like, that's fucking bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad because even when he goes in to talk to the person living there, it's even smaller. It's this tiny room.
Yeah.
Like with a hot water heater in the background, it's like a utility room.
Yeah. He knocks on the door and we see he goes into the garage basically, and we see Alondra in the garage by the crate that is covered in like all of her drug shit or something like that. The detective asks if she's Divinity. Alondra says no, Divinity's not here. They talk about the murder cases a bit. Alondra packs up her stuff, goes to leave. The detective offers to help her move her crate, and when he tries to move it, a triple X capsule falls off and breaks on the ground, spilling out its baking soda or flour-looking drugs onto his shoe. And that's when Alondra attacks the detective. She grabs him by the neck with one hand and summons the strings of Thor somehow and pins him up against the wall one-handed. He tries to break free but can't, so he goes for his gun, but she grabs his wrist with her other hand and forces him to put the gun like up to his face, and he's trying to like squeeze the trigger, but then she just tosses the gun aside. Like, she could have killed him right there. She's like, nope, I'm just gonna take this gun and throw it to the side, and then punches him in the face. She licks the blood off her fingers, says to him, "It's obvious I didn't need help with the box, you like dummy." And now they go into like this short fight scene that ends up with Alondra pinning the detective's head on the lid to the crate as the monster inside starts to roar and is like banging against the underside of the lid from underneath. One of the tentacles slithers out and tries to wrap around the detective, but Alondra slaps it away, saying not yet to it. She then lifts the detective's head up and gives him a back elbow right into the face, knocking him to the floor. She pulls out some rope while saying, "You want to know more about what we do? Let me show you." And then we just cut back to the CSI lab where Ted and CSI...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That whole scene, man. Like, you get the impression she's got superhuman strength. She's somehow enhanced. Because this guy's a pretty big guy. You know, he's a good-sized dude. He's a police officer. That would give you the impression that he knows how to handle himself, especially against a lady. But this lady's lifting him up with one hand and just beat him by the head and shoulders all day long.
Right.
So that's the impression you get.
I'm not gonna. She didn't like lift him off the ground. I don't think one-handed, but still the fact that she grabs one-handed and pins him against the wall with one hand is a little unbelievable. But
one-handed, takes his gun out of his hand and he holds it to his head and then just throws it away. Like,
yeah,
you get this impression that she's a real bad, like she's a little bit more than human.
Yeah, maybe. I guess it's not too bad because she is muscular. She is a larger girl. I mean, she's got broad shoulders and muscular arms and a muscular back and all that. So, but still, it's a little far-fetched, but it could have been a lot worse. I will say that. At least I was glad she didn't lift him up off the ground one-handed. I saw him go for the neck like, oh, God, no. I just don't. It didn't happen, so I'm glad about that. I'm glad. So anyway, we go back to the CSI lab where Ted and CSI boss lady sit at the table looking at pictures. In comes Daniel again, who gets reamed again for all of his photos getting ruined. And it's more of the same scene, so I'm skipping over. Daniel just storms out, blaming the gnomes that they've messed up his film. They messed up his camera. But it's just more of the CSI boss lady yelling at him, which gets old real quick. We jump right back to Alondra, who now has a detective stripped down to his skivvies, tied up in a chair with a ball gag in his mouth.
Like with ropes around his nips and like squeezing his body. Like he's tied up in a very, very sexual way.
Oh, yes. In walks and you know what? That makes me wonder, like, what did she do to get him like that? Because it's not like she just picks him up, put him in a chair, and ties his arms to the chair. Like, that rope work would take some serious time to do that. Like, there's like designs in it. It's like hexagonal stuff, and like that's elaborate rope work for BDSM bondage stuff. That would take. And you're telling me that the detective just sat there patiently while she did this to him? Like, that's insanity. Like, what? So anyway, in walks Divinity, not realizing that Alon is thinking, oh, she's like, oh, I didn't realize you had a client and you're playing. I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt. And she leaves. So she just turns around and walks out thinking that this is just Alondra doing her thing with some other guy. Time passes, and we go back to Daniel in his house. He's kind of going crazy, pulling a whole like Nightmare on Elm Street like thing. I mean, like he's loading up on caffeine, trying to stay awake because I guess these monsters are also like Freddy Krueger or something, which I don't understand why he's doing this or why he can't just go to sleep at night because like that's never been explained. So why is he?
They didn't explain it why he's doing this. Yeah, he's forcing himself to stay awake to catch the blood gnomes. But they killed. The only time they seem to be killing is at BDSM events. You know, when there is a BDSM. Yeah.
And only if you're doing blood sports.
Forcing himself to stay awake and look for these little blood gnomes creeping around? There's no explanation. It didn't make any sense. I thought I missed something.
No, I did too at first, but like, nope. There's no explanation of this whatsoever. And it's a great point because the only time we see them kill anybody is during a BDSM stuff, when they're involving blood sports. Other than that, if there's not blood sports, if they're not cutting each other, then there's no threat. They don't get involved. So it's like he has no reason to be staying up all night and doing this. During this scene, we see a few of the creatures running around in their invisible form throughout his house in the background. Daniel also has more flashbacks of his wife. We do find out that one of Daniel's
the scene goes on for a while.
It's probably one of the longest scenes probably in the movie. One of his secrets to staying awake is by shocking himself with a fucking taser. So he has a taser now he's shocking himself with. At one point, he throws a coffee mug at an invisible gnome, which ends up smashing his TV screen. So he takes down the broken TV and instantly replaces it with a new one. I'm like, what? Hold on a second. You're telling me this guy breaks so many TVs that he just keeps spare ones lying around? Or does he buy his TVs and appliances in 6-packs or bulk? Like, we see him have 2 microwaves, and now he's got... I broke that TV. Well, let me just put a new one right there up. Like, instantaneously, a new TV in its place.
At least it's consistent with this character. At least he has,
I guess.
They showed they had 2 microwaves earlier. So now he has 2 TVs. It's not that far-fetched.
It's so weird, though. Like, I've never seen that before. Like, at this point, like, is this like a gag I'm missing? Is this like a comical joke that we're not getting or something? Like, I don't get it, but it's so weird.
He just, as soon as he breaks it, he just whips. I mean, you're right. Just like almost immediately, he just has a new one he's setting up.
So, eventually, Divinity shows up at his place, all worried about him. He tries to explain to her about the creatures, but she doesn't believe him and tells him that he's scaring her and he needs help and he needs to go to sleep. She also tells him though that Elandra's massive BDSM play party, and that but hey, you know what? Don't worry about that. You need to get some sleep. It's like, why even tell him about that in the first place? She gives him a kiss and a hug, and then she leaves. We cut back to Elandra and the detective, and she starts cutting on the detective, like slicing him up a bit. And all the gnomes come out and start just scurrying around in the darkness.
They all start getting horny.
Yeah, she waves them over, and one by one, they all start slicing up and biting into the detective. Elandra says to him, now that I've introduced you to my children, now let me introduce you to their mother, which is weird, because if they're your children, how can they be... whatever. On that cue, the crate lights up from within and starts to rumble and shake while smoke rises up from out of it. So I guess the monster inside loves the vape or something, because I don't know why there's smoke coming out of this thing all the time. The lid begins to bounce open and close on the crate, and the camera pans down and fades to black as we hear this loud roaring sound. So again, we still don't get to see what is in the crate fully. So I will say they're doing a good job of maintaining that suspense a bit, of keeping that a bit secret and building that up. We go right back to Daniel, who still has a few creatures running around his living room that he keeps throwing coffee mugs at and missing. His computer.
The best thing is when he's trying to stay awake, he's got he's sitting in the middle of his living room with a small table next to him, and it's got like 6 or 7 coffee mugs on it, and he just keeps chucking these coffee mugs all around the house. It's so dumb.
His computer beeps, and he starts getting IMs or instant messages from the blood gnomes, and we know this because their screen name is Blood Gnome. So the gnomes now start taunting and cyberbullying Daniel through instant messages on the computer. Daniel turns on his camcorder and starts capturing the blood gnomes on tape. And they don't take too kindly to this, and they start attacking Daniel while at the same time using magical force powers to erase the tape on the VHS, on the VCR. I mean, one of them stabs Daniel in the back of his leg with a small kitchen knife. Then while a second one uses the taser and tases Daniel like right in the face, like right in the mouth, right in the kisser with a taser.
Right in the mouth, like right in his teeth.
Yeah.
Like I want to see his fillings explode.
Exactly. Daniel falls on the floor from this. The creature leaps onto Daniel's back and tries to reach around and slit his throat, and tries to stab him or something. But Daniel grabs the creature's arm and bites into the creature's hand, causing it to drop the knife, and it also causes the gnome to lose its invisibility powers now. Seeing it fully and clearly, Daniel grabs a knife, stabs the gnome right in the center of its chest, killing it. The gnome kind of withers into like this dried up husk at this point. Then Daniel starts looking around and realizes that he can now see all the blood gnomes. So he grabs a baseball bat and starts cleaning house. Like he's beating all the gnomes.
Fucking Mark McGuire and everybody, yeah.
Yeah, he's beating them with baseball bats. He kicks one of them in the nuts, which they don't have, but he kicks them in the nuts anyway.
I loved it.
But it works nonetheless. And then he like stomps, just completely curb stomps this one, crushing his head in. Once it's all over, I don't know why he does this because that's insanity, but he starts licking the monster blood off of his fingers like it's chocolate fucking syrup. And that's just disgusting. Like I would not be.
You know those things have got STDs for days.
Who knows what those things have? Like it's monster blood, and you're licking it off, and that is disgusting.
You're gonna get monster chlamydia.
Yeah, exactly. Time passes. Daniel takes a VHS tape to some guy somewhere and tells him to put it in the vault for safe keeping. But the guy ends up just putting it on the shelf. Daniel leaves. It's a meaningless scene. Nothing ever happens. It's not like we never see anybody come and get the tape, or like somebody like a monster come in and sneak the tape off the shelf, or Ilana get. It's completely pointless. Yeah. It doesn't matter whatsoever. So Daniel then shows up at Divinity's house to try to tell her that he caught the monsters on tape and tries to stop her from going to the big BDSM play party. She tells him, hey, you know what? Just lie down. You need some sleep. I'll call and cancel. I won't go. You just need to lay down and sleep. So Daniel lies down and instantly passes out. Divinity takes off her robe, more titties, and tries to start getting dressed for the party, even though she just said, I'm going to call and cancel, but apparently she had no intention of doing that. But as she reaches out for each article of her BDSM clothing, it gets yanked away by an invisible monster. So she's leaving her standing there topless, looking around as several invisible gnomes wander around her bedroom. One even crawls right on top of Dan, right over his chest, and Dan's like, whatever. Doesn't move. She starts screaming for Daniel, who doesn't wake up. He's just still sleeping. But he finally wakes up just in time to see her get grabbed, pulled to the floor, and dragged off into the darkness. Which, again, if you watch this movie enough, if you pay attention in the background, you can see 3 dudes just pulling her into the dark. You can actually see the people pulling her away.
It's not a bad shot, though.
No, it's not. If your TV brightness is a bright enough TV, you see, but otherwise it's pretty dark. You won't see it. But it looks good. It's a good shot. So Daniel, seeing this, he tries to get up to go after her, but he gets grabbed by the ankles, which causes him to trip and fall head first into the door, which knocks him out. So
it's a little too slapsticky. It's very Home Alone.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Very Home Alone. When he wakes up, he finds himself holding a small, bloody kitchen knife, which he instantly drops. He looks over to the side and sees the severed head of the lead detective sitting on a chair. So I guess now the blood gnomes are trying to frame him for murder. So they got
those little bastards.
Those bastards, I guess. Yeah. Daniel runs for his car and races back to his house. He grabs his police radio, which is just a walkie-talkie. It's not like a police scanner, so I don't know how he would get this information on a walkie-talkie that far away, but whatever. And he hears that an APB has been put out for a suspect that was seen with a bloody knife with black hair and glasses, which makes zero fucking sense considering no one was in the fucking house with them and the severed head. So there were no witnesses to this. But yet, how do they know the suspect has black hair, glasses, and was seen holding the knife, which he dropped before he even left the house?
Blood gnomes.
But still,
the blood gnomes tipped off the cop.
I guess, but it makes so. At this point, he gets more instant messages from the blood gnomes, still taunting him. They tell him that they have divinity at the party, and you know what?
What you gonna do now, bitch?
You're like, you want her? Well, stand by, because we're gonna send you an email with the address on it. They don't just type it into the instant message and say, come here now. It's like, we're gonna send you an email with the address.
So what's that email address? Is that at Yahoo? No. Oh, okay. Hotmail. Gotcha.
It's AOL.
Okay.
2004. Probably AOL.
Yeah. So is that Daniel Smith one word or underscore? So dumb.
So dumb. Daniel checks his radio again and hears the dispatcher mention the suspect's white SUV and his license plate. So again, I'm like, if the cops have this information, white guy, black hair, glasses, white SUV, and the license plate number, how do they not know it's Daniel at this point? Why don't you say, okay, the suspect's Daniel, what's his name? He works here.
Right.
But they still don't. They're like, that makes zero fucking, these are dumbass cops then. Like, if run the plate, it'll tell you who he is right there. But they still don't know it's him officially, which is bullshit. So he runs out of the house. Up drives Ted now, because I guess he's trying to, I don't know what the point of this is, but basically, Daniel just carjacks Ted like he's playing Grand Theft Auto and then races off to the BDSM party. So we cut to the party where we see several party guests arrive. One of them is cop number one, who we see, he's always in the background of all the murders. He's just kind of standing there, keeping civilians at bay.
Mr. Outrageous.
Mr. Outrageous. Cop number one, he's in the, so he shows up wearing like leather vests and leather pants and all this. At one point, he also he tells Alondra that the cops have been taken care of as far as finding out about, they're not going to interrupt this party. I've taken care of that. And then so Alondra's like, all right, I'm going to go take care of the cop then. And we cut to him, like, sitting backwards on a chair, getting flogged. I can't even think. Getting flogged by Alondra.
Cat of nine tails.
So next to arrive at the party is the one and only Miss Julie Strain, who's accompanied by identical twin blonde sisters, blonde girls. Now keep in mind, everyone at this party is dressed in like black leather, black vinyl, your very stereotypical, very BDSM fetish stuff. Except for Julie Strain, who shows up dressed like a fucking mermaid for some reason. It looks so out of place. I blow my mind like, what? Okay, that's weird, but she's
You just got done from like the Splash cosplay party.
Yeah, pretty much. So next comes a BDSM lover's dream montage filled with all sorts of whipping, bondage, and titties everywhere. Julie Strain, the two blonde chicks, they're like completely naked in this. There's one shot of a guy sticking a giant long metal needle through one of the twin girls' necks, which is really disturbing. That's like, oh, that's bad. But it turns out that guy, his name's Ron Fitzgerald, I believe, and he is a goth magician based somewhere in the Midwest at the time. And that's one of his magic tricks is the needle through the neck. But this montage just keeps going and going. We start seeing the blood sports come into play. Just more titties, more nakedness. It's kind of hot, some of it. I mean, there's so much nudity. Daniel finally arrives at the party and just bursts in like a madman, yelling at everyone to stop.
Just freaking out. Just going nuts. Just like, oh, yeah, what you doing? It's just got to bring the blood nose. Look at there. Oh, God. Ah, he starts like kicking at the air and stomping on the ground, just freaking out that there's blood nose. Everyone's like, what the fuckity fuck is going on with this guy?
Exactly. Everybody just stands there looking at this guy just going crazy. The cop, Mr. Outrageous, he comes running out with his gun, like, what's going on? But he just stands there, which is fucking weird because he works with this guy. He knows he went, but Daniel, what the fuck are you doing, man? You need to calm down or come talk. Let's talk. No, he just stands there with his gun in hand, does nothing about it. Doesn't even acknowledge that he knows Daniel. But finally, the party's doorman, like the security guy, the doorman who we've seen, he finally comes up, grabs Daniel underneath his armpits, and just carries him like he would like a baby with a poopy diaper at arms. Just, I'm just gonna carry you away, and just carries Daniel off and puts him in the chair that Divinity made, that we saw Divinity making earlier, and ties him up to that with the help of Alondra. And then the doorman just goes around and like, stands by Daniel and just puts a chokehold on him and makes him pass out, chokes him out.
Goddamn. Yeah,
Alondra tells everyone to go back to their scenes, go back to the party. I'll take care of this. It's all fine. So get ready for more BDSM montages and more titties. Just titties galore, whips and chains everywhere. Alondra sets her focus on the doorman, who she beckons over, and she starts feeling him up. And again, another continuity thing I picked up that I found was really funny and odd is the whole time. Okay, when you first see this, the doorman, he's wearing leather pants, and just a leather vest, no shirt. And he's got a very hairy chest. But in this scene, when she beckons him over and starts rubbing her hands up and down his chest, he's shaved. All his chest hair is gone. Right. It's just completely gone. So she's rubbing. She pulls out her fancy knife and starts like rubbing it up and down Doorman's stomach and abs. And then she just slices him across the stomach, and it's a deep cut. Like it's like it opens up pretty deep. And he drops to the floor holding his wound, even though which is the bad thing about this scene is when he drops to the floor, there should be blood pouring out of this guy's wound. There's zero blood at all on this. Like, just come on, throw a blood packet on there or something. Have some drug.
It really sucked. It felt kind of let down, because this kill is the kind of the catalyst to get the blood party started, which comes up right after.
Exactly.
But there's no blood.
No
for
blood
someone
whatsoever.
Who's starting the blood gnome feast of the blood sport and blood and BDSM, and there's nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, he dies. Daniel wakes up just in time to see this and says, "It was you the whole time. Where's Divinity?" And Elandra just shushes him and tells him to watch as all the monsters start appearing, now and start attacking everyone at the party. This scene is pretty awesome. This climax is pretty awesome. It very much reminds me of the poultry guy scene.
Yeah,
and there's
good.
another movie we talked about, but I mean, all hell breaks loose. It's just a chaotic mess, and we get bombarded with shot after shot of everyone in this party just getting attacked, cut, sliced open, blood's flying everywhere. And again, I'm saying it's pretty fucking well done. It looked good. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this is crazy.
Yeah,
going
I'm
on.
actually pretty impressed.
The cop just starts blindly firing his gun at random things. At one point, he shoots and kills the magician dude.
Yeah.
By accident. Julie Strain and the two blondes, they're getting ravaged by the monsters. Blood's flying everywhere. Bodies are dropping dead. All while Elandra just stands there watching in glee. Once it's all over, we see the monsters eating severed body parts and then feeding other body parts to the mother monster in the crate. Elandra just rolls a naked Divinity up in like a bondage wheelchair or something like that, who's tied up and bound to this chair, out to Daniel, and rolls right in front of Daniel. She tells him that she says him that, so let me get this right. She tells him that he has something that she wants, and he has something, or that she has something he wants, basically. Daniel tries to play dumb about this at first, but quickly drops that act when Elandra threatens to start cutting Divinity into pieces, starting with her fingers. And when she's talking about you have something I want, she's referring to the videotape that he made with the gnomes on that he deposited with that random guy earlier. And then Daniel realizes, hey, you're not going to let me go, are you? Or let us go. But she's like, you know what? I'm going to let Divinity go. But as for you, Daniel, you drank their blood and you can see us now. I can't let you go. You have to die, basically. So that's the trick. So basically, drinking the monster's blood allows you to see through their invisibility. But it's weird that she says us instead of them, because Elandra is never visible. Right. Or invisible. She's always been visible. She's just a regular human as far as we know. But she says
and she's
us.
a human. Yes, not a blood gnome.
Yeah. And I'll give this right now. No, it's not a spoiler, but she never turns into a monster either. It's like, oh, I was a monster the whole time. No, that never happens either. So she's like a normal human, visible the entire time, but she keeps saying you can see us now, and it's weird. Anyway, Elandra then straps up Divinity to a pole or something. She pulls her up. Like, she's got her hands tied to like a chain that's dangling out from the ceiling. So her hands are above her head while saying sorry. Like, she tells me, I'm sorry. I like you, but I got my priorities straight. I got to do this. And it wasn't supposed to happen this way. Elandra then goes over to the crate while monologuing about how human blood allows the monsters to be born into this world. She reaches into the crate, pulls out a newborn monster, cuts the umbilical cord, pulls out a wad of, something that might be, I guess, a monster placenta, sticks a syringe into it, sucks out some thick goo, then shoots the goo into her mouth. It's fucking disgusting. I'll say that much. That's horrendous.
So is this blood gnome stem cells that she's harvesting?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused.
I guess.
Do we ever get an explanation as to why she's cultivating blood gnomes?
I guess she just at one point says, "This is my reward. I might as well profit from it." So I guess she's using the goo from the monster placenta as the main ingredient in her triple X drug, her X times 10. That's the only thing I can think of, which I don't get it. I don't. It's never really explained fully. Meanwhile, Daniel realizes that he's strapped to the chair that Divinity built and uses the trick she told him about to make the arms break away. So he gets out of it, which allows him to free himself from his binds. Elandra grabs a whip now and starts to walk towards Divinity, but gets bashed over the head by Daniel. Elandra, proper.
It looks good.
It does look good. However, Elandra gets right back up because I guess she's fueled by the power of monster placenta goo. And with a flick of her wrist, she lets out her inner Catwoman / Indiana Jones and whips her whip at Daniel and manages to whip it right around Daniel's neck. She starts pulling him closer. Daniel kicks her in the stomach, causing her to drop the whip. Daniel falls to the floor. Elandra runs up, punts Daniel in the face like she was Randy Orton, and then takes... Then knees him twice in the face, grabs him from behind, punches him 2 more times in the face. This fucker should be a bloody fucking mess. But he's like, fine.
And this is where I'm like, okay, she's got the superhuman abilities. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, but the point that I got is that he should be a bloody mess. His nose should be broken. There should be blood gushing out of him. Teeth probably should be missing. He's fine. He might have a tiny nosebleed at this point, and that's it. Then she drops him to the floor. Elandra says, "Now time for your girlfriend." She turns, walks towards Divinity. Daniel reaches over, grabs the whip, and says, "Wait!" And then yanks the whip, which I guess gets wrapped around or caught in Elandra's high heels. It trips her, sending her crashing to the floor. Daniel gets up, mounts Elandra, and starts choking her out with the handle of the whip, and then repeatedly punches her in the face. But for some reason, he just stops then and rolls off of her, and allowing her to get back up. Like, dude, you have her on the ropes. Like, don't stop. But he just does. He's like, okay, I'm done. And she gets right back up. Divinity calls out to Daniel, warns like, she's behind you, Elandra, she's behind you. So Daniel then turns, charges her, and spear tackles her through a fucking table like he was Edge spearing John Cena in like a TLC match or something like that. Like, it's just a straight...
when I saw that, I'm just like, get the table!
Yes!
Dude, this whole fight scene, you can tell she's a stunt woman because she's doing a pretty good job doing these, like, kicks and knees and punches. They look pretty good. I even thought to myself, I wonder if she ever did professional wrestling. And now I hear she's a stunt woman. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But then when she goes to the table, I'm like, holy shit, we got pure pro wrestling going on here.
It is. She should be. She probably should have done that on the side. If her acting career didn't take off, she should have gone. She probably could have had a nice career on the indie circuit, I'm sure. She had the build for it, that's for sure. But I guess I kind of fucking loved it, the whole spear into the table thing. I loved it. I did. At this point,
in slow motion too.
At this point, all the creatures start going nuts, like they start growling. The lid to the crate bursts off, just like boom, boom. The lid goes flying, and the tentacles just like fly out, and they're flopping and thrashing about the room. Everything's blah, 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 blah. Daniel rushes over to Divinity and starts trying to undo all of her bindings, trying to free her. The blood gnomes at this point, they start leaping onto Daniel's back, attacking him. He grabs Elandra's knife and starts stabbing them, but more just keep leaping on top of him. But he's able to
fighting them off.
Yeah.
It's so funny because these are puppets and mannequins that are being tossed onto him off screen. He's grabbing them and smashing them against the wall. But I have to say, the way they edited it, the way they cut, the way they moved, the camera work, it made it look more convincing.
Yes, I agree with you 100% on that. They did do a good job with that, because it could have been a whole hell of a lot worse. Because they are puppets, and this is a micro budget film, so it could have been horribly bad. But they managed to hide a lot of the weaknesses and make it look good. So yeah, he's able to fight them all off. Elandra stands back up at this point. After going through the table, she's back up. And he goes to stab her, but she grabs the blade with her hand out of midair. So she's like gripping the blade in her hand. There's blood coming down her arm from her hand, and she starts to overpower him. But then Elandra gets attacked by the tentacle. It wraps around her arm. She yells out, "No, Mother, it's me!" But Mother don't give a fuck at this point anymore, and starts pulling her down towards the open crate. The Mother monster bites into Elandra's neck, then pulls her body into the crate fully, and we see Elandra's head get wrapped around and fully immersed in all these tentacles. And again, it looks good for a low-budget movie. It looks really good. Then the mother monster lunges out of the crate, and this is the first time we fully see the mother monster. And this I was disappointed in, though. The monster looks fucking silly in the mother monster. The tentacles all look great. The close-up of the mouth everything look great, but when you see like the whole thing come leaping out, it doesn't look that scary. It looks almost cute.
No.
Like, I'm like, oh, that really let me down here. I was really let down. So, I don't know, but this looks wonky. Luckily, it's only on screen for such a brief moment, and then it gets obscured by some more smoke and stuff, so you don't see it for too long. And then large chunks of rock begin exploding out from the crate, and that's like, what the fuck is happening here? Daniel Divinity's...
I didn't know what was going on.
I'm like, what? Why is there rocks exploding out of the crate now? Daniel frees Divinity. They stand there. They hold each other as light like that's beaming out of this crate begins, like it's the fucking Ark of the Covenant or something like that. Slowly begins to fade out. They kiss. Then they look down into the crate and see that the mother monster has now burrowed down and under the cement floor and down into the sewers, I think, because there's this giant deep hole that's left behind. So I'm guessing it's the Ninja Turtles problem now to deal with this monster. The camera goes down the hole. Like, we see the camera zoom down the hole, crossface.
It feels like we're getting a colonoscopy done.
Yes! We crossfade like this POV shot going down what looks like a giant fucking sphincter. Or, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it looks like.
It's a total colonoscopy shot.
Yes. And then images of the mother monster and some blood gnomes flash across the screen. Blackout. Roll credits.
You're going to get blood gnomes up your ass.
And that's blood gnomes.
Because they're in the sewer now. They're going to come flying up through the toilet, up your asshole. You need a colonoscopy. Call your doctor now.
Maybe blood gnomes is a prequel to Ghoulies. Maybe Ghoulies originated as blood gnomes, and they retreated into the sewers. And that's why they come up through the sewers, because they're all blood gnomes, and they
pop up through the toilets.
But then the mutagen that affected the turtles started mutating the blood gnomes into the ghoulies we know today, because they're all a little different.
Interesting. Yes.
I think I'm on something here. I'm digging that theory.
You are too.
Anyway, So, that's Blood Gnome, guys. Let's move on to our favorite kill.
Don't act like you didn't love it. Favorite kill.
All right, what do you got this week, Aaron?
Man, I mean, there weren't a ton of kills. Lots of them were just kind of flashy. But my favorite was actually the opening montage, the opening kill. It was like you had the BDSM couple. It was shot in black and white. It was kind of artistic. And then when it kind of came back to color, you see the slashing going on. The slashes were well done. And the girl tried to save them. So I'm like, okay, great. I was invested in that moment. And it kind of made me think, this is promising. So, yeah, that was my favorite kill.
Yeah, it's hard to say because so many of the kills, a lot of them are all the same. Is that just people getting sliced open. The pig couple, that's a weird one. But again, it's just kind of the same thing. So I don't know how you differentiate, but the ending party scene where it's just that mass murder, like everything's going crazy, is so great. But I kind of think I'm going to agree with you too, because even though I like the ending scene better, like it's so chaotic and so intense, but that first opening one is what sets the mood, and like it got me hooked. I'm like, oh, this isn't as bad as it might be. I thought it was going to be. So okay, so I agree with you on that. But you know what? No, I'm gonna go at the end, like, because I can't lump it like that ending scene where everybody's getting it. It's just so intense. It's so fun. There's chaos everywhere. It's so much fun. So I'm gonna take that whole ending scene because you can't pick out one kill. I guess I don't know. Is that fair? Can I do that? I don't know. I feel like that cheating.
Sure, why not, man?
right.
It's Blood Gnome. We don't care.
All right, so I'm doing the end scene as mine. All right, so there's our favorite kills. Let's move on to this week's odds and ends.
Just when you thought it was over, here comes the odds and ends.
All right, so ratings. We have IMDb gives it a 3.1 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, there is no official thermometer score, and it has an 18% audience score.
That's pretty low.
Yeah, Amazon though 3.2 out of 5, rocking the threes. Plot keywords, there were 16, and here's most of them: bare breast, bare butt, female rear nudity, topless female nudity, and BDSM. That's almost all. Pretty much everything else evolves around there. There's a few other things, but it's pretty much all like more porn based than horror movie based at this point. All right, so trivia. There's a few things I was able to pick up on this. The movie was shot in like 12 days, in only 12 days. The first murder scene that we saw, with the opening couple, was actually shot in the director's house. The scene of the monster giving birth with the Sarlacc vag pussy thing was filmed a month after principal shooting had wrapped. Julie Strain was responsible for getting the identical twin sisters to appear in the movie. She got them on board.
Atta girl. Nicely done.
The twin sisters, even though for some reason are named as Zen and Zero in the movie, and go by the Porcelain Twins, is all made up. The real names are like Heather and Amber or something like that, and they were all Penthouse pets at one point, or featured in Penthouse years ago. So was Julie Strain.
Man, go with that name, Zen and Zero, the Porcelain Twins. I like that.
Yeah. So apparently, you know how I made fun? We commented on the nonsense that the camcorder had X-ray vision earlier.
Yes.
Well, supposedly there really was an old Sony camcorder that had such a powerful IR mode that it really could see through very thin cotton clothing when shot at night. And due to that, it had to be recalled. They recalled it, and so yeah, supposedly that was a thing, but it only worked at night. And the VR, yeah. And the lady who played the angry CSI lady boss only got the role because she was the only one who auditioned for the part that could properly say maniacal. Because apparently everybody else are retards or something. They can't pronounce maniacal. And so that's how she got the part.
Good Lord.
And the guy who played the doorman / security guard was the 1980 Mr. Italy, who is just shrunk down a lot now. He's not as swole as he used to be because he got older and he just stopped lifting. But
hey, he's still doing well.
He still looked good. He was still had a lot of muscles and pretty well. But yeah, he was a 1980 Mr. Italy, and damn, he looks good for his age then. Because I mean, you got to imagine Mr. Italy is probably what, somewhere between 18 and early 20s.
24.
24 to compete in those things. And that's in 1980. And this was in 2004, so he's in his 40s, I guess.
He's in mid to late 40s.
Mid late 40s, and he looked good for his age then, man. I gotta say that for sure. Okay, that's all I got for trivia. That does bring us to this week's budget game.
Time for Aaron to blow his wad with the budget game.
All right, Aaron.
All right, you're saying I'm going to blow my wad. You better be careful, man. I'm going to come under budget on this one, I think. Considering they had, people cancel on them, it seemed like they were filming in the director's homes. Straight to video, 2004. Lots of titties, though.
Lots of titties. So many titties in this movie.
But special effects weren't bad. That's the part that makes it tricky, is the titties and the special effects.
Yeah. I'll give you
everything else sucks.
A lot of the blood effects of the slicing and cutting that were done were CGI. So there was CGI involved.
Ooh. Shit. $35,000.
All right, Aaron's guessed $35,000. Well, you kind of blew your wad again, but again with these micro budget movies, it's hard. But you still came in over. You were over. Budget for this movie, $12,400.
Holy cow! Only 12. I gotta say, they did really good work for $12,000.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. Because I got all this budget background information before I actually watched the movie. It's like, oh god, what's gonna happen? And then I was like, oh, okay, nice. So all right, that brings us to our reviews, 5-star reviews.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall.
Good versus bad. Right versus wrong. Light versus dark. In the end, when the dust settles, who will be left standing after Mortal Kombat combat?
All right, so 5-star reviews. There were only 24 total reviews on Amazon. 34% are 5-star, with 22% 1-star reviews. So pretty close split there. However, of those 34% 5-star reviews, only 2 of them were actually written down. They just other people just clicked 5 stars and didn't write anything. So Brandon Wan writes, "So awful, it's awesome," 5 stars. And Sean McCollum writes, "Frank Capra, Billy Wilder, Orson Welles, and now John Lechago. A finer film has never been produced that involves a drug lord, bondage fetishes, crime photography, and of course evil gnomes that have internet capability. 5 stars for 5 stars for campiness." So that's all I got for 1 stars or 5 stars. So the 1 stars, there are a lot more 1 stars. A lot more people took the time to write shit about this movie than to praise it. So I wrote down 4 of them. From Too Many Meows. What is this? More importantly, why is this? I think my brain cells have just been destroyed. Being drunk isn't enough to make it through this movie. Mocking it isn't enough to make it through this movie. There were a lot of nice boobs, but you can see those anywhere. It's not enough to save this movie. Bloodsport and bondage and domination, and for some reason the gnomes need people to be either horny or scared and to have blood drawn before they eat them. I can't. They're born out of a large vagina detente, and they are the drugs, and oh God, there is no pacing to be spoken of. The climax happens in the last 3 minutes of the film, and just nothing. I keep asking myself, what is the point of this scene? Why is this here? Suicide is a viable life decision. Watch this movie if you're a masochist. I can't recommend to anyone. On the other hand, if you want to be immortal, watch Blood Gnome. Time will never end, and you'll be young forever. 1 star.
Pretty good review.
From Ghoulie Grrr. In this unofficial sequel to Critters, or maybe it's Ghoulies, a bunch of evil latex puppets terrorize anyone foolish enough to partake in BDSM. The sad part is there's almost an interesting idea here, but it totally is wasted. It would have been nice if the writer would have actually done some research rather than just watching Exit to Eden a couple of times and assuming he knew anything about the fetish community. There's a goofy walkthrough by Scream Queen Julie Strain, which may be the highlight of the movie, sad to say. This movie would make Lloyd Kaufman, Roger Corman, and Charlie Band cringe. 1 star. From I Am God, somebody's got a complex there. I Am God writes, honestly, this has to be the worst movie ever made, period. The main problem with this is it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. What's even worse is the DVD extras. It shows the director ranting and rambling on about how good this movie is and how it relates to his life. This guy must have had one fucked up childhood if he's going to portray it about gnomes and bondages. In conclusion, if you want to roll on the floor laughing as I did, rent this movie immediately. 1 star. And lastly, from Sherry E. Barker, this movie was not kosher with me. It's almost as if the director started this project solely for the purpose of to see naked girls. I sincerely believe rental places should pay the customers for removing the foul stench this movie's oral places over all the other movies surrounding it on the shelf. As incredibly and exhaustingly consuming of your mind this is, you will feel as if you're looking back at the time you watched this movie while on your deathbed, hoping you had those 2 hours replaced by any memory other than this cinematic lobotomy. The person responsible for this waste more than likely could have made more money selling ice cubes to Eskimos. 1 star.
You saw this movie 3 times.
3 times I've watched this movie. Yeah, I watched this one 3 times. I watched it the first time once I got just watch through and see what it was like. The second time I watched it was when I was taking my notes, and then I watched it immediately following back-to-back viewings. I watched it the third time with the director's commentary on, to see if there's any notes or anything I could pick up on it.
Bro, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the director's commentary again. It wasn't bad, but it's pretty shitty. Like, it's about 80% of it is just the director going about talking about technical mumbo jumbo, like, oh, look how great I am with doing this shot. And look how I pulled this off doing this. And a lot of lighting talk, so much lighting talk. And like, oh, I did this, and you have to use this effect, and you have to use this, and I'm so great for pulling this off, and blah, blah, blah. And then the guy who played Daniel was just there like, yeah, I remember I was tired in this scene, and yeah, I think we talked about the blood gnome, or it's terrible commentary. It's really bad. But there you have it. There's other people's takes. So that brings us to our final talks, our takes on this. Aaron, what do you got this week? What's your final thoughts on this?
Okay, so Brandon Schneider recommended Blood Gnome. So here we are, watching Blood Gnome. Keep the requests coming, guys. But yeah, I gotta say it's unique. It had an idea that was unique to horror movies. I mean, the BDSM community is out there, and I'm sure they're horror enthusiasts as well, or probably lean that way. So to make a horror movie around that subculture is kind of interesting. I gotta admit that's an interesting take. And there were good lighting shots, honestly. There were good camera tricks here and there. There was good editing. The acting wasn't horrible. Some of the characters, like the chief, that chick, she sucked, but apparently she was the only one who auditioned for the part. Because she could say the word
she's
maniacal.
the only one who auditioned that could pronounce maniacal. Other people auditioned, but they couldn't pronounce maniacal properly.
Good Lord. So, so it had some positives going for it. But the negatives were, it didn't make any half the time it didn't make too much sense. I mean, you're making this drug. I guess we kind of put it together at the very end. Is she making drugs out of the placental juices of this mother creature who we don't know where it came from? Is there any sort of satanic tie-in? Is there an otherworldliness? You're talking about these creatures, but it's like, oh yeah, they just showed up one day. You know, there's no substance there. And then fucking Daniel with his dead wife photo on the wall and his crazy ass. He's not someone you're like really rooting for either. The guy's kind of out there. So, and he's a really weak actor and kind of a weak character. So that part sucks for it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have to say so bad it's good. Because of the uniqueness of the actual movie and the kind of the theme they're going for, they went all balls out with the titties and the BDSM shots and, you know, the rope work and that stuff. And it's not my thing, but I kind of appreciated that they're making it almost for that community, or like at least trying to shed some light. It's an interesting choice. So that's because of that, and because I found out also $12,000 they did a lot of good stuff. I'm gonna say check it out at least once, but just make sure the kids are in bed, not for the gore, just for the ridiculous amount of titties.
That's a good point. You made a lot of good points. I'm saying so bad it's good, man. I too am saying I'm going there. Like, I thought this was going to be absolute garbage. Like, when I saw the cover and I saw it on, like, you know, on Amazon, I'm looking it up. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so bad. This is garbage. And I got him like, but he said right at that first scene, like, okay, this isn't so bad. And then I got hooked. Like, I liked it. It is terrible. It's a bad movie. And like you said, very little is ever explained. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, I like the movie. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened. Why that is. I can't make sense of it. But I enjoyed it. I like the uniqueness of it. It is, like I said, the first time, you know, somebody doing something that BDSM community has kind of been an untapped a community in the film world, especially, and I guess you would see it. I'm surprised we haven't seen it more in the horror genre, to be honest with you. So that's that. They tried something new. The effects for that micro budget were pretty damn good. I really wasn't that bored with it. Like, there's enough ridiculousness going on in this movie that I'm like, okay, even if it's bad acting and kind of drawn out, like, you can at least kind of enjoy yourself with the silliness and the ridiculousness of everything going on. That, yeah, I'd say it's worth the watch, man. If you can get your hands on a copy, I'm not saying go out and buy a copy of it right now, but if you were to stumble upon it for cheap, or just you know somebody you can borrow a copy from, I 100% say give it a watch at least once. But yeah, make sure no kids around. There's so much nudity in this movie, so much adult, like it's yeah. But yeah, there it is, man. I'm done. That's my point, and I'm putting my whip of approval on it. And so bad's good, man. Brandon Schneider, I thought I think you thought you were gonna get us with this one, maybe, but turns out we liked it, man. Sorry, it's a weird one, but like Aaron said, keep the requests coming, guys. We really appreciate all those requests. Keep them coming. We're trying to get through as many of those listeners suggested movies as we can. So yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier, the BDSM community not being tapped very well for horror, but it's so crazy because like we've been to horror conventions where you see people in this type of dress and garb, and then even at CreepyCon they had people doing suspension from the hook.
Yeah, there was like a full BDSM like show like at the CreepyCon in Knoxville last year. Yeah, they do kind of go hand in hand.
I don't know enough about that subculture. If they're saying, well, that's not quite what we do, I apologize if I'm off base, but I don't think I am. I think it's something that it tipped the scales for so bad it's good for me because of that.
They did. I did in the commentary. They did say the director did say that they had an on-set consultant who I guess was in the BDSM community to help out with like terminology or like again doing all the weird rope knots and the rope tricks that people were tied up in and kind of consulting on that. Which makes me like, if there, I would love to talk to an actual BDSM participant, like ongoing, like that's your thing. And if you've watched this movie and like get your take on like what is it accurate? Like what's wrong? Is it what they're doing is pretty accurate? Or I'd be very intrigued to talk to somebody who's in that world who has seen this movie and get their opinion on it. So if by some miracle chance you're out there, give us contact us, man. I'd love to talk to you about this movie and get your thoughts. But with that said, man, I don't know. I guess we'll wrap it up for this week. You got anything else you want to say or plug, Aaron, before we wrap it up?
Nope, I'm good, baby.
All right, well then that's gonna do it for us.
Oh wait, no, I do take that back. There is, yes. Here Comes the Spooky podcast is back at it. So they just released an episode yesterday. So if you want to check out Cincinnati Jeff and Nachos and Werewolf, they're back after a hiatus. Cincinnati Jeff had a baby girl. And, COVID hit and all that stuff, but they're back and rolling again.
Good plug right there. So that's going to do it for us, Moongoons. Thanks for listening. You know what comes next. Watch more horror movies. And remember to always
Whip it good.
And keep it tight.